I'm Matilda Whitetail, director and lead designer at Dear Cosmos. Welcome to another chronological recap of recent space missions by both the Union of Cervid Capitalist Republics and the Allied Territorial Federation. Starting off, the UCCR has unveiled an upgraded medium-lift launch vehicle, the ROG-5B. It boasts improved aerodynamics over the ROG-5 and adjusted fuel tanks for more efficient launches without sacrificing payload capacity. One of the first missions carried out with the improved launcher was Everhart 1, designed to perform a flyby of our inward neighbor, Eve. Unfortunately, due to delays, the probe was not ready for launch in time for this year's Eve transfer window. Rather than dismantle the probe or keep it in storage until next year's window, the decision was made to launch Everhart 1 anyways. Instead of flying to Eve, the probe was to be placed into orbit of Minmus. Its high-power relay antenna will be used to aid in operations on the icy moon. The scientific equipment was also left on board to test viability after long flights, as an Eve transfer can take between 100 and 200 days. Some in the ATF claim that the director and Dear Cosmos staff had horribly miscalculated when the Eve transfer window was, and only realized the probe couldn't reach the purple planet after reaching orbit and failing to plot a maneuver for an Eve encounter. This rumor is demonstrably false, of course. Moving on, the Cervid Air Force has adopted a new reconnaissance plane, the Ru-1B, developed by Dear Cosmos. The jet demonstrated its capabilities with a brazen flyover the Houston Space Center, taking high-altitude photos in the heart of ATF territory. The Ru-1B successfully outrunning and outclimbing all attempted intercepts. Small-scale mass production has begun with other contractors, and the money from the development contract will be put into further space exploration efforts. Speaking of which, Minhart 8 successfully became the first Kerbal-made object to fly around a moon and return to the surface of Kerbal. Up to this point, science experiments conducted around the moons have been limited to only being able to transmit data back to Kerbal. Minhart 8 marks the first great step towards recovering experiments for a more complete understanding of our moons. The probe flew past Minmus, conducting experiments in low and high space, before returning to Kerbin and landing in the UCCR's eastern peninsula. Sadly, during re-entry, the cameras and magnetometer, situated high above the heat shield, broke off. Still, the rest of the science equipment survived and was successfully recovered and examined by our science team. Additional missions will be carried out until returns with no complications become routine. With the war in Vietnam ever raging on, many lessons have been learned observing the use of UCCR and Kong-Kao equipment lent to the Vietnamese forces. Most urgent was the need to replace the aging Ol-1 fighter jet. While it had served well as the UCCR's first jet-powered military aircraft, the two-decade-old design was showing its age in the air war. The Ol-3 was thus created to solve this problem and provide a match for the jets provided by the ATF to the rebel forces. Reports so far have been favorable, with much improved speed and agility over the Ol-1. In combat, the Ol-3 has proved very effective against the ATF's standard fighter jet, the F-68 Baxor. The new 25mm cannon being far more effective on all targets than the Ol-1 or F-68's 50 cals. Once again, mass production has been handed over to the usual contractors, while the development payout has been put towards space development. And back in space, Minhart 10 was placed into a polar orbit around Minmus. The satellite spent the next few weeks conducting an orbital resource scan of the small moon, confirming the presence of mineable ores beneath the icy surface. This proves the moon is not entirely made of ice, although its exact composition will still require sample analysis from future missions. The surface being made of mint ice cream is still not ruled out, thankfully. Continuing the back and forth of space and terrestrial updates, Ru-1B spy planes have been flying routinely over Vietnam to provide intelligence. Military aid sent by Cato to the South Vietnamese forces all funnel through the Kurdish-Vietnam border. So, regular flights have been made over Kurdish airspace. Planes, guns, tanks, and foreign troops have all been recorded moving into the war zone. But when flying over the peninsula west of Vietnam, a Ru-1B photographed something unusual. Several launch pads and the accompanying support structures had been constructed for large missiles. Based on their shadows and the length of the nearby shelters, these missiles are believed to be intercontinental ballistic missiles, likely with nuclear payloads. Their size makes nearby Vietnam an unlikely target. Instead, it is believed that these missiles are intended for striking the eastern half of the UCCR, north of Kurdi. Up until now, the East has been home to our retaliatory strike preparations, as missiles launched from the ATF would take longer to reach there and could more easily be intercepted. Now, with the proximity of the missiles in Kurdi, Cato could strike all of the UCCR with little warning. In response, the Cervid government has requested the development of more powerful ICBMs to match the speculated capabilities of the missiles spotted in Kurdi. Dear Cosmos is developing the ROG-8 to meet these requirements. It will be capable of delivering a 12-megaton warhead to anywhere on Kerbin in just 17 minutes. Testing is still underway, with the first full launch test scheduled for just a few days from now. And speaking of Cato provocations, Sarah Kerman was arrested by the CGB. She has been found guilty of espionage, sabotage, and treason. Sarah was the second ATF astronaut rescued by a UCCR Voskhart mission after her spacecraft malfunctioned and stranded her in low Kerbin orbit. At the time, the ATF was unable to perform rescue operations of their own Kerbals, and as the only nation that could, we were able to rescue her ourselves. As with Ambro Kerman, the first ATF astronaut rescued in this manner, Sarah was offered a position at Dear Cosmos if she renounced loyalty to the nation that left her to die in orbit. She accepted and joined our science team, working on various missions. During her time with us, however, she had secretly been in communications with ATF intelligence and had been acting as a spy. She was the one who leaked the full technical data of our EVA jetpacks to the ATF, allowing them to catch up to our spacewalk capabilities months earlier than they otherwise would have. The ATF jetpack recovered during Voskhart 6's secret mission, having proven to be a one-to-one copy of ours. She was also responsible for falsifying documents that resulted in the Antlers-1 spy satellite being sent into orbit without a parachute to return its photofilm. She was not placed on the Antlers program, so it is not known yet how many other secret projects she may have gathered information on. There is currently no evidence that Ambro Kerman was also compromised, but she has been placed under heightened monitoring and grounded from future flights for the time being. Similarly, it is unclear if Thompson Kerman has been made, and he has been temporarily detained for his own safety. Publicly, Thompson's absence will be covered up as being on holiday. Back to space news, the ATF have unveiled their new medium-lift launch vehicle, the Sarnus-1. It launched for the first time carrying Panner-1, an unmanned rover to Minmus. The Panner rovers are designed to be remote-controlled from Kerbin, driving over the surface of the moons to perform experiments in their many biomes in fewer launches than using traditional lander probes. The first rover was sent to Minmus and touched down in one of its flats without incident. But due to the slippery surface and low gravity, Panner-1 has had difficulty traversing. Time will tell if it is able to fully complete its mission. Panner-2 was launched shortly after the first, this time heading for the moon. However, due to a fuel line failure, the rover crashed into the surface. While it was largely intact, it was completely immobilized. Subsequently, Panner-3 was also launched to the moon, but experienced an avionics error and fired its descent thruster a little too late. Its suspension absorbed the impact but caused the rover to bounce and flip over, landing upside down. After firing its thruster again and extending its steering legs, the ATF Mission Control was able to recover the rover with surprisingly minimal damage to its top communications dish. Having landed only 5 kilometers from Panner 2, Panner 3 was able to drive over and inspect the previous rover. It has not had any of the movement difficulties of its brother on Minmus and is expected to complete its missions in the next few weeks. The ATF have also revealed their first heavy-lift launch vehicle, the Sarnus 1B, ostensibly a slightly modified Sarnus 1 with additional fuel in the upper stage. The Sarnus 1B was used to carry the ATF's new crewed spacecraft into orbit, the first launch in the Phobos program, which aims to land Kerbals on the moons. Actually doing so will require a more powerful super heavy lifter, but for now the ATF are testing the orbital module in low Kerbin orbit. The Phobos command module is based on the previous Dioscuri capsule, but with an extended cabin to house 3 Kerbals for a long flight, an enlarged surface module with more fuel, and a significantly more powerful engine. While nothing revolutionary, the launch of Phobos 1 comes at a time when Dear Cosmos has mostly been prioritizing military and satellite contracts. While work towards it has been carrying on in the background, there hasn't been any publicly visible progress towards landing Kerbals on the moons from us. Now, though, we will have to do something to remind the public of our commitment to this goal. Preparations are being made to launch a test flight of our own manned lunar capsule in low Kerbin orbit to match the spectacle of the ATF's mission. Now on to the world map. Not much has changed in the grand scale of things this time, but the front line in Vietnam has moved slightly further north. ATF soldiers and equipment have greatly helped the South Vietnamese rebels to take more ground. But the tide is turning. Kong Hao has increased the number of troops it's sent to fight, and the UCCR has increased its air war aid. The Ru-1B spy plane has proven valuable, providing intel on troop and materials movements, while allowing North Vietnam forces to better prepare for attacks. The Ol-3 fighter jet has made interceptions of enemy fighter bombers more successful, ending the South's air superiority. Finally, we have our updated goals for the space program. Firstly, we need to complete our contract with the Air Force to develop the ROG-8 ICBM. After that, the next new rocket we'll begin construction of will be our manned moon orbiter, testing in low Kerbin orbit. We will also begin development of a heavy-lift launch vehicle to compete with the Sarnus 1B. This will greatly increase the Delta V we can bring with us on future missions and bridge the gap while work continues towards our super heavy-lift vehicle that will be used for our manned moon landings. Current plans are for the heavy lifter to first be used to send our first rovers to the moons. As always, we remain committed to the long-term goals of putting Kerbals on the moons, establishing space stations in low Kerbin orbit, and not killing any more of our cosmonauts. Thank you.